Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today, Masechtas Bava Metzia daf Nun Daled. We are going to begin on Nun Gimel Amud Beis, 5 lines on the bottom. Iboilhu. So we're going to continue to learn different dinim when it comes to Chaimish. Now, as we mentioned, when it comes to Meiser Sheni, if the peros are too heavy to be brought to Yerushalayim, you can redeem them onto money. However, when you do so, you also have to add a Chaimish. So is the fifth, is it from the outside or the inside? In other words, is it, let's say, for example, you have to have, let's say, 5 prutos, as we mentioned, according to one shita, you have to have enough that the chaimish itself is a pruta. So what does that mean? We end up learning from there a raya, which we'll see in a second. But basically, if there's 5 prutos, so the chaimish is therefore another pruta, which would total 6, or is it all you need is 4 prutos, and then the chaimish is 1 more, which is 1/5 of inclusive of the chaimish. Therefore, that would be the nafkamina of how much the chaimish has to be. Is it from the inside or the outside? So Ravina Tashma Tabal Moimrim Be'esrim. So the Baal says 20, and everyone else says 20. Says Rashi, this is Gabi Makdish, someone who's Makdish something who paid the Hekdesho, and would be Makdish it. So when you're Makdish Hekdish, you make it holy, and then you wish to be paid the Hekdish, you wish to redeem it. So the question is, how much is it? So if the Baal, the owner says it's 20, and everyone else says it's 20, so we say that we want him to be the one that does it, because the owner, not only does he have to, of course, pay how much it's worth, but he also, because it's his, he has to be Moisef Chaimish. However, if it's someone on the outside, doesn't have to. So says Rashi, 25. Anyone else doesn't add chaimish. Let's say one says 21, and as we continue down the Aleph, so in that situation he has to give 26. 21 plus the chaimish, which is another 5. 22, again 22 plus 5. It ends up being 23. So again, he has to give the 23 plus the chaimish, which is another 5. It's 24. So you have to add another 5, which ends up being 29. If it's 25, the Baal gives 30. So we see clearly over here that the chaimish is coming from the outside, because it says 25. So what is 1/5 of 25? 5. So therefore, we see it's from the outside. It's not including chaimish. But the truth is ketanai. It's actually machlokes tonight. The pasuk says v'yosef chamisha savolav, you add a 5th. Shehehu v'chumshai chamisha, that it together with the chaimish could equal 5. Divrei Rabbi Yeshaya, which means, what does that mean? It must be, it's actually coming from the inside. It's 4 plus 1, which makes it 5, which means that therefore the 1/5 is really technically a quarter. Okay, so we actually see it's a machlok. It's 1/5 of the principal. So again, it's really machlok tonight. So when you do the pidyon, do we say it's ma'akev, and therefore it doesn't work because you haven't completed the entire redemption process? Or do we say, since you did the principal was redeemed, that's enough? So dalid b'dalid park. If let's say it's 4 and you redeem with 4, so we say that's a redemption. Actually, let's look in Rashi first. So when you redeem the fruits of the Meiser Sheni onto money, so the question is, are you allowed to eat these fruits now? Because again, the money is really the kedusha is on the money. Kedusha's meiser sheni is on the money. So now you could eat the fruits because the fruits are now chulin. But the problem is, since you didn't do chaimish, the question is, does that work? Can you still eat the fruits? So daled b'daled park 4 to 4, it's a redemption. However, says Rashi, however, this is not part of the redemption. So Alma, what do we see? So we see, really, the chaimish is not ma'akiv, because what are you doing? You're taking 4 zuz worth of fruit and you're putting it onto money. So therefore, that is, all of the kedusha of the fruits have now gone onto the money. So therefore, the extra chaimish is really a totally separate thing, and therefore should not be ma'akiv. Or maybe actually, if it's 4, you have to redeem it to 5. And as Rashi says, kachu gzer sakosov she hachaimish min hapidyon, who they actually have to add that to be part of it, and therefore, if you have 4, you can't be paid less than 5. So therefore, that would mean that if that would be the situation, and that why if it's 4 to should be 4 to 4. If it's 4 to 5, it means that the chaimish is ma'akiv. Hadamai. Now, when it comes to Damai, which is Meiser Sheni Damai, the Chamim say that if you purchase this from an Am Haaretz, we're concerned. Did he take off Meiser or not? Now, Midoraisa, we assume maybe he did. However, Midorabanan, it's called Damai, and therefore you have to separate. The din is Ein L'chaimish. Now, when you would be paid it, you wouldn't have to add a chaimish when it comes to Damai. But of course, you do have to be paid in Midorabanan. Ve'en lo biur. There's also no din biur. Says Rashi b'shana shlishis. In the 3rd year, shenistavisu lavayir kol maser sehim and abayis. Person has to get rid of all the meiser from their home, as it says v'nosatel mi shehem reitzim. Give it to whoever you wish. It said mixei shal shanim after the 3rd year. So there's a din of biur. So there's no din biur when it comes to damai. Now hakaren yeshlo. However, when it comes to redeeming, you do have to redeem it, the principal. It says Rashi, and if you didn't do so, you would not be able to eat damai. You cannot just eat damai of Meiser Sheni fruit outside of Yerushalayim. Either bring it into Yerushalayim, or you have to at least be paid the actual worth onto money. Now, my timer, Karen dem Akiv midaraisa. The whole notion was because Karen, the principle itself, is a din deraisa. So isa b'derabanan. Therefore, we have a din damai. Chaimish lo ma'akiv b'deraisa must be the chaimish is not ma'akiv leisa b'derabanan. So when it comes to damai, so we don't institute the chi of damai. So therefore, learning and looking at the dinim of damai, it's a raya that chaimish is not ma'akiv. Ba'leimika tanoi. Maybe taka tamachol is tanoim. Nosan is again monosan chaimish. Again, beferish. All you did was give the principle, but not the chaimish. So Rabbi Eliezer Omer yoichal. He says you could still eat it. Must be because chaimish is not ma'akiv. So Amrav Nirin Div Rabbi Eliezer. I can understand the sheet of Rabbi Eliezer that you could eat it b'Shabbos. We're more lenient on Shabbos. Why? It says Rashi, when you covered Shabbos, you have food you need to eat, and you have no other option. Let's say this is the only food you have, so we're mako when it comes to Shabbos, you're allowed to eat it even though you didn't do the 5th. However, we're going to be more strict on a weekday where you could have done the 5th. It's a weekday. So until you do so, we're not going to allow you to eat the fruits. Now, mid Aymar, near in David Rabbi Eliezer b'Shabbos, the fact that he says we can be lenient on Shabbos, machal de pligi, afil b'chol. It must be the machlokas is not just on Shabbos. There's a general machlokas even on a weekday whether you could eat these fruits. So my love b'hasvara kamifki. They are going this. Just push it. Can you eat the fruits or not? It's just telling whether or not chaimish is a ma'akiv. And therefore we see it's really machlokas tanoim. Even though again we learned out from Demai already, the chaimish is not ma'akiv. Made up some malchus tonight. So I'm up below. Kol yam chaimish lo ma'akiv, as we said before. V'hacha b'chayshinan lepishiyusa committing. Marsa b'chayshin lepishiyusa. Marsa b'chayshin lepishiyusa. So what is that? It says Rashi, Hadikam Rabbi Yeshua Yoichel. Why don't we allow him to eat it? It's not ma'akiv. It's midurabanan kaimer. Shemi yivsha v'yisyayesh v'yitin chaimish oid. Once you allow him to eat it, so yeah, you could eat it, but don't forget, after you've eaten it, you still have to do the fast. You may not do it, because you got all the benefit, and that's it. You're going to forget to do the chaimish. So therefore, because then we say, no, don't eat it at all, because otherwise you may end up eating it and not give the chaimish. It has nothing to do whether it's ma'akib. Maybe it's not ma'akib. Rav Yochanan, Hakol Moedim, everyone agrees, but hektish shechilel, that everyone agrees when it comes to the din of hektish, that it's considered to be a good separation, even though you didn't take off the chaimish. So why aren't we chayish pshusa? Hoyel v'gizbarim toibenayisa b'shuk, because we know that since they're gizbarim, they're collectors for hektish, they're not going to allow this to slide. They're going to make sure that the chaimish was given. V'hektish shul pligi, is that true? They don't argue. V'sanya nasan esken lo nasan chaimish. Rebelezer amerchil v'cham lochil. We say it's a machlokas. Amarav near the Rebelezer behektish. I hold like Rabbi Eliezer by hektish. Again, medikamin near and Rabbi Eliezer by hektish mechad poligafil by meiser. Must be that they argue by hektish and also by meiser. And again, medikamin near and Chachamim by meiser. I hold like him when it comes to meiser mechad inhu poligafil by hektish. So we see there's a machlokas by meiser and there's a machlokas by hektish. So how could you tell me that when it comes to the dinim of hektish, that we should say that everyone holds uvehektish hakol moedim behektish shechilel el iyid mar hachiyamar. This is how you're supposed to read it. Omar Rabbi Yochanan hakol moedim b'Shabbos. When it comes to hektish, there's a machlokas. When it comes to Shabbos, behektish shechilel. When it comes to on Shabbos and we're dealing with hektish, then it works. Why? Two reasons. As we said before, we want you to enjoy Shabbos, and you did technically separate it. You did redeem the kedusha onto something else. You just didn't do the chaimish, but still, because of Shabbos, we're going to allow you to eat it. Because we said we're not concerned the chaimish won't be given since the gizbor will collect. Now we know that when it comes to hektish, there's a din that you can't take hektish and be pointed onto land. The Pasuk says meferish, it's got to be money. That's how it works. So chum shumahu shichal al karka is the din of chaimish. Is it completely linked to all the dinim, just like when it comes to the karen, the principle, you can't be machal, you can't redeem it, you can't transfer the kedusha onto land. So too not by chaimish, or is chaimish different? So truma enu mishtalemas element achulin. So when it comes, that's the question is by hektish, but let's understand this. When it comes to a truma, and let's say we have a non-kohen who eats truma b'shaygeg, so what does he do? He could not pay except with chulin money. He has to pay chulin. The Rachmana Omer, v'nasan l'koines hakodesh, davar haroy liyois kodesh. It has to be something which is fit to become kadosh, which means it's not yet kodesh. Chum shomahu shishalim shalom and chulin. However, what's the din when it comes to, again, a zar who eats again, this is a totally separate question. Truma b'shaygeg is the same din by chaimish. It has to be from chulin. Another question. Meiser in mischal al atzimoy. Meiser sheni has to be on a minted coin. It cannot be a coin without a form. The Rachmana Omer sartar kesed biyadacha has to be some form on the coin, some picture. Rabbi's kol davar sheishul of tzura has to have a picture. So chum shemahu shischal al atzimoy. Can you use a tzimoin for the fifth? So these are a few different questions. Is Galgil Milsa, so this matter went around, Umatul committed Rava, and it chanced upon Rava, Armuhu Amakra, a love. The pasuk says a love, says Rashi, Bekulu Chomshin Ksiv Yosef a love. It says Yosef a love. Why does it have that extra word? It's a Rabbi Chomshai Kamoiso. It's to tell you that Chaimish is just like itself. So therefore, when it comes to these different questions, again, by Hektish, you cannot be transfer even the Chaimish onto land. When it comes to Truma, even the Chaimish has to be from Chulin, and you cannot be paid the Chaimish onto a Tzimoin. It has to be on a Tsura. I also have that which can support this. It says as follows: Hagaynev Truma. You have a person who stole Truma, v'lo achla, and he didn't eat it, so he returns the Truma exactly as it was. Misham tashumi kefel demei Truma. So he does have to pay kefel, which is all the dinim, which is a kanas of geneva. You have to return double the amount, but you can use demei Truma. Says Rashi, kamashi hishava lemarcher b'shok. How much it's worth in the marketplace? V'dameha pchusim b'demei chulin. Certainly, Truma has less value based on supply and demand than chulin. She'enu roya elu kohanim, because only a kohen can eat Truma. V'enu roya b'yamei tumasa. He can't eat it while he's tamei. V'imatama so b'achila lefikach dameha muatin. So it's less money. So it's a little bit of a leniency, not a great leniency, because he still has to be kefil, of course, because he's a ganav. Nonetheless, he can pay the lesser amount as it's debate truma. Achla, however, if let's say he taka ate, this ganav ate the truma, mishalom shnei kuranim, then he has to pay almost like he has to pay again the kefil. We call it karen twice. V'chaimish, and he also has to pay a fifth, which Rashi says, "V'hakaren hasheni shehuba machmas kefel shel kanas geneva mishalom nami demei truma kloimer mois kamon shemikares truma b'shuk." So he has to add a chaimish onto one of the karens. That's why it's not chaimish on the kefel; it's chaimish on one of the karens. So he pays 2 karnayim, which is equivalent to a kefel, then he pays chaimish. Karen v'chaimish min achulin. He pays Karen v'chaimish. He has to give chulin money. However, Karen demei truma. However, the other Karen, the original, you can again pay with truma money. So what do we see from all this as we continue to nun dal mebeis? Shema mina. So we can derive from here chum shay kamoisu shema mina. It must be the chaimish is just like it. How do we see this? It says the mishalim peros loimois, that you have to pay its fruit and not in money. Okay, I'm not sure if that's the actual rye over there, but again, what do we see? That the chaimish is linked to the karen, and just like the karen has to be from chulin, so too the chaimish has to be from chulin, and therefore that is the rye. Question 13. Hagaynev Truma of Achla, Kama Mishalim, so we said 2 karnayim, Him Sarchasham Peros Davka, Afil Mais Demei Truma. So the Karen V'chaimish is Peros Mesukanim, has to be proper fruits. The Karen Sheni Mois, this Karen Sheni could be money. Okay, but again we see that there's a link of Karen and Chaimish from Chulin. Okay, therefore the Chaimish has the same din as the Karen. Omer Rabba. Gabi Gezel, when it comes to stealing, Rashi says Gabi Asham Gazelois, that if a person steals as a chiyuv of bringing a carbon asham, of course it's talking about you steal, then you deny, and you make a shvua, so then there's a chiyuv of having to pay an extra fifth. Siv, the pasuk says V'chamishasav Yosef love, that you have to add an extra fifth. They're not talking about a gazlan only pays Karen. However, if he lies in court, makes a shvua, and then he has to pay an extra fifth. He has a chiyuv of that, and also carbon asham gazelus. Utana nasalos a karen v'nishvul al chaimish. What happens if he gives the karen? Says Rashi achar shenishba. He made a shvua v'hoidish v'nischayiv karen v'chaimish. He's chayiv karen and chaimish v'nishvul al chaimish. But he makes a shvua regarding the chaimish. He denies the chaimish. So he paid the principal, but then all of a sudden he lies about the chaimish. So So all of a sudden the chaimish becomes like the principle itself. It becomes like the keren itself, and therefore because of that, when you deny that aspect, you have to pay a chaimish on the chaimish, because the chaimish itself becomes like the keren, and that can continue up until Pachas B'Shem Pruta, as we saw before in Perek Meruba and Bava Kama. So it says like this: Harizeh moisev chaimish al chaimish. So then is. So let's read it again. You gave the keren, but you made a shul on the chaimish. Harizeh moisev chaimish al chaimish. Okay. Gabi Truma, so that's what did by when it comes to hektish. Gabi Truma ksiv ish ki yoichel kodesh b'shgagav, a person, a non-Kohen, a zar, eats b'shoigeg truma, so he has a chiyuv of having to pay also not just the principle that he consumed, but also chaimish. It says v'yosav chamisha asav lav tanan ha'eichel truma b'shoigeg b'sham keren b'chaimish. You have to pay also the chaimish, of course. It doesn't matter what happens, if you ate it, or you drank, or even you anointed yourself with it, says Rashi, as it's brought down, Perek Basar and Mesechtes Yoma, the very end of Mesechtes Yoma, Shtia kachila, that drinking is like eating, and also smearing oneself has the same din as drinking, which has to do with the inuyim of Yom Kippur, that one of the prohibitions on Yom Kippur is anointing oneself. That was like water in your inside, and like your oil on your bones. Skipping a few lines, and Rashi, if you're mazik, if you destroy it, then there's an exclusion on that. Okay, so back in the Gemara. So echad truma tahar, echad truma tameya, misham chumsha. So in all these situations, you have to pay the chaimish, even if it's tameh. And then here's the key lines: the chumsha, and a fifth onto the fifth. What is that referring to? It's what we're just saying before, that if you would deny the fifth, let's say you pay the keren, but you're kaifer on the chaimish, and then you deny it, and you make a shvua, then you admit that you lied, so you have to pay a chaimish on the chaimish. Now that's when it comes to that's the din. Now v'ilu gabi meiser lo nichtav ksiv, it's not written. V'lo mitna tana, it's not learned. V'lo iboya, and we don't even ask it. So therefore we don't add on fifths. In other words, v'chumsha chamisha, that din is davka when it comes to ha'oichel truma. Okay? However, when it comes to meiser, we don't have this din. So when it comes to hektish, there's a din chamisha sub, you add a fifth to a fifth. Also when it comes to truma, but not when it comes to meiser. Let's look in question 14. Hagoyz of nishmal sheka oichel truma b'shaygeg upoy de hektish upoy de meiser te'im yesh behem chiyav chaimish al chaimish. So begezel yesh chaimish al chaimish. Dachein b'oichel truma. Dachein hapoy de hektish. Hapoy de meiser in b'chaimish al chaimish. Okay. We didn't completely finish that, but that's what we're going to end up seeing. Gabi hektish ksiv im hamaktish yigolas beisoi. If you redeem that which is in your house of hektish, v'yasa chamishas kesef erkacha. You have to add a fifth. Utanan hapoides hekdeshil moisav chaimish. If you're poid de hektish, you add a fifth. So, of course, again, when it comes to stealing hektish, there's a fifth. Also, if you're poid de hektish, there's a fifth. Chumsha tanan, chumsha de chumsha lo tanan. So, mentioning about a fifth is mentioned that when it comes to the redemption of hektish, you have to add a fifth. But a fifth onto a fifth, it doesn't mention. So, what's the din? Gami truma ksiv v'yosef. When it comes to truma, it does say Gabi kodesh nami haksiv v'yosef. It also says v'yosef, so maybe it's also chaimish al chaimish. You can add a fifth onto a fifth. Well, dilma gabi truma ksiv v'yosef ishaklas levav. If you would remove the vav of Yosef, the v'yosef, if you remove that vav, shadisle al chamishasai, and put it by the word chamishaso, tavli chamishasav, it becomes its fifth In other words, it could be many fifths. So maybe that's the reason, because you can interchange the vav from one place to another. That's only by truma. Gabi hektish ksiv yosef chamishis. Avrav dechi shakos le'lavav tev yosef. Even if you remove the vav, shadas le al chamishis, and you put it over there, so if sav havali chamishi so, it wouldn't be chamishi sav. Chamishi sav is its fifth, which means you could add many fifths. So maybe just on the dikduk, if you will, it's possible that this din of chaimish al chaimish only applies to truma and not by hektish. So v'tebel to have a hektish sheni. Why don't we learn out that when it comes to, this is considered like hektish sheni, a second redemption of hektish. The Yomi Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, hektish rishain, when it comes to the first time that you want to be pointed, ma'asav chaimish al hektish, ma'asav chaimish al hektish sheni ein ma'asav chaimish. So if you do it a second time, if you transfer it onto the item onto another item, so then there isn't chaimish. So maybe that's just part of the answer. Amar Pablo Ravina hachem Rabba chaimish kitchilas hektish dami. When it comes to chaimish, has the same din as the original time? My havula. So what is the din? So again, maybe it does have the same din. Therefore, you have to be moisef chaimish al chaimish. So my havula. So Omer Rav Tiv Yomi Mishmei Abai Omer Krav Yosach Chamishas Kesev Erkacha Machash Chaim Shol Kesev Erkoi Ma Kesev Erko Moisef Chaimish Av Kesev Chaim Shenami Moisef Chaimish. So taka, we see that a person is going to be moisef chaimish there. Gufa, going back. Al hektish rishon moisef chaimish. Al hektish sheni, the transferring onto another item in moisef chaimish. Omer Rabbi my Talmud Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. Why not? Omer Krav im hamaktish yigos beso hamaktish will hamatvis. The din is only when you're maktish it and then you transfer, but not when it's already been transferred to transfer it to something else. So then the chaimish is not included. Okay, we're going to stop there. But again, let's one more time look at question 14. So when it comes to stealing, and then again you denied and made a shvua, but then you pay the Karen, but then you deny on the chaimish. So there is chaimish al chaimish. Also, if a person eats truma, the same thing. There's chaimish on chaimish. And so too, as we just saw, when you're pointing hektish, there's chaimish on chaimish. However, when it comes to, and by truma for sure, when it comes to meiser, ein boy chaimish al chaimish. There is no chaimish on chaimish. Let's see if there's another question here. Inyan ma nemar chumshoy kamoisai behektish b'truma v'meiser. So, as we just said, this is what question 10. Behektish ein mischalel. Oh, so what is this question? Inyan ma nemar. When do we say that chaimish is like the Karen? Okay, this is not based on what we just saw. So when it comes to hektish, when it comes to truma, and by meiser. So by hektish, shemischalel karka. By truma, that shemishalom in hachulin has to be when you pay back the truma that you ate, b'shogeg, or you have to pay from chulin. And the meiser shemischalel tzimoin. So that's a very good question from the previous daf. And then TB11, which I think we had already. Hagozel v'nishbal sheker oichel truma b'shoygeg apoyde hektish apoyde meiser. So I wrote like this: Yesh chaimish al chaimish al kol elu chutz l'mishu hu roitzel apoyde meiser shrak oz in chaimish al chaimish. Adkan.